Hi, I'm Carol, here to share with you the population education activity Timber. This lesson follows the fate of a forest whose timber is being used to meet the demands of an increasing population. Now, renewable resources, like trees, are often used faster than they can be replaced. Increasing population, along with economic prosperity, can exacerbate this issue. So in this lesson, you're going to have your students working in groups of 4, where they will explore the growth of trees versus the consumption of trees in a forest management simulation. And by the end of the lesson, your students will be able to both analyze what happens to a natural resource when demand exceeds supply, and they'll also be able to determine ways to preserve forests in the future. It's a great lesson plan for middle school classrooms, and the content is appropriate for both science and social studies, and there's even some ways to bring in mathematics. Now, prior to doing the lesson with your students, you'll need to set up the props, and you'll need one set of props for every group of students. In the lesson plan PDF, we describe everything that you need in detail, along with the quantities that you'll need of each. So for our purposes today, I'm going to bring in some of my colleagues to act as the 4 group members in one small group, and we'll go through the simulation. The next thing we need to do is assign roles to each of the 4 group members. The 4 roles are forest, forest manager, lumberjack, and the all-important timer. My colleague Lauren will play the role of the forest, so she will oversee all of the trees currently in the forest. Isabel will play the role of the forest manager. So throughout this simulation, she will be adding trees to the forest, which will be simulated by adding popsicle sticks to the forest group of popsicle sticks. Amanda will play the role of the lumberjack. So she will be cutting down the trees, and that will be represented by removing popsicle sticks from our forest. And lastly, I will play the all-important role of the timer, who will keep us on track. So the lesson plan moves forward in 1-minute increments, and during each minute, 2 things will be happening simultaneously. On one hand, the forest manager will be adding trees to the forest at the rate of 1 tree every 15 seconds. The lumberjack, at the end of each minute, will be cutting down trees, so removing them from the forest. Now keep in mind that we are assuming an increasing population, which means that there is an increasing demand for timber. So at the end of the first minute, the lumberjack will cut down 1 tree. But at the end of each subsequent minute, the number of trees that the lumberjack will cut down is doubling. So let's move forward with the simulation. So what was the fate of our forest? Well, as we saw in the simulation, it took less than 8 minutes for the entire forest to disappear. All of the trees were cut down. But it's interesting to note that the forest was not always shrinking. In fact, at the end of the first minute and the end of the second minute, the size of the forest had actually increased. Between the end of the second minute and end of the third minute, the size of the forest remained the same. And it wasn't until we got into the 4th minute where the forest size started to decrease. But then it did decrease from every minute from there on forward. So we offer a variety of discussion questions for both science and social studies with this lesson plan. My favorite discussion question has to do with the supply side of the equation. And that question is, if the forest manager was able to create a tree that could be planted at the rate of 1 tree per second, would this save the forest? Would our growth be able to keep up with the consumption? And it's a tricky question because we are going from adding just 4 trees per minute to adding 60 trees per minute, and that's a big increase. However, the trees being added are only being done at a steady, constant rate, where the trees being cut down are being cut at an ever-increasing number. So the number of trees being planted will never keep up with those being cut down. Now, solutions for deforestation is a real-world challenge, but it's important to understand why our forests matter so much. So you can brainstorm with your students all of the services and things that trees and forests provide when they are still living. Things like regulating climate, providing oxygen, conserving soil, serving as habitat for animals. From there, you can discuss steps that would be involved in creating sustainable forestry. You could challenge your students to think, what could we do on the supply side of this equation? The when, where, and how trees are being planted. Or is there something we can do on the demand side of the equation? The when, where, and how trees are being cut down. To bring in more math, absolutely have your students manipulate the data and do some graphing. They'll be able to compare linear growth with geometric growth. Through the follow-up activity, you can also bring in some English language arts by having your students read and interpret a poem by Ogden Nash. They can even take it a step further and write their own forest-inspired poem. So for this lesson plan and others just like it, visit our website, www.populationeducation.org, and thanks so much for watching.